Welcome back to Clink. If it's your first time joining us, thank you very much for taking the time to come see us. If it is, if you're a seasoned watcher,
Seasoned, is that?
seasoned.
Still think we need the pins or the badges or the t-shirts or something.
Yeah, mate.
Seasoned watcher, and it would just have like a picture of you, and then like some seasoning, like you put on the chicken or something.
This is a serious topic this week.
Yeah.
But before we get into the topic,
We need to get on the light-hearted.
we get the lightheartedness out of the way. Let's start with a beer review. Or at least we'll introduce the beer. So we've got.
This beer is great. I haven't even opened it yet.
So we've got a Wild Yak Pacific Ale, a pack ale, as they like to call it, like shortened
Okay.
and
Shortened.
it's a shortened name. I don't know if they actually do it. It's made by the
Thank
Matilda Bay Brewery, which is actually it used to be its own brewery, but it got purchased a few years ago.
A wild yak, huh?
It's a Wild Yak. Also,
What would the noise be that thing would make?
a Wild Yak.
Yeah, a wild yak.
Probably a lot more than a somber yak.
Or slightly. Yeah.
Have you seen a yak before?
Have I seen
Yeah, have you like
a yak?
a yak?
Not in like IRL.
IRL.
Have you?
Clink. Yes, I have. In New Zealand. So, yeah.
What? You were like, I need to stop laughing now. Alright, well, I didn't know they had them in New Zealand. I'm sorry. It's just the way you were like, can I drink it yet? Are you going to ask another question?
I think, yeah.
So, okay, where did you see one?
In New Zealand.
Like,
You asked me where it was, I told you where it was.
We just been over this, Ash. No, where? Like, in New Zealand?
We're on the North
Near
Island.
that gas station that's run out of fuel. The one gas station.
No. We,
Was it wild?
no. I was on a farm and we were just driving along because there's more sheep in New Zealand than there are
People.
people, yeah. That's a fact.
It's like Wales.
Oh,
That's something different.
So we're driving down, and there's some sheep, there's some cows, just like livestock. And then I was like, "What is that?" And there's yak. There's like actually in there, big horns and everything. It was quite interesting to see because they're massive.
For milk and things, I guess.
I don't know what they're using for. That's a someone
branding.
Yeah, I don't know, but anyway, yeah, I did see them. No, this is an Australian beer, but yeah, no, I did see a yak.
Okay,
So,
wow.
anyway, get into the
I
topic
believe
for this week.
Yeah.
As you would have been aware and you've seen on the news and everything like that,
Pretty scary time.
it is a very scary time. There are a couple. There's these two countries in the Korean Peninsula. You may have not have heard of them, but you most likely would have.
Japan and China.
They're on either side of it.
Oh, in the Korean Peninsula.
But in the middle, there is North Korea and South Korea. We have been chatting about them for a few episodes, or even just us personally, not let alone the actual places which have been through a big war and Japanese occupation through World War II.
It's a very interesting topic right now. Like I think you know, a lot of this history is coming out now because of this sort of revitalization of the knowledge that they are around, that they exist, and that they are, you know, something to think about. So.
Yeah. If you go through the timeline of the country since after the Cold War, or the Korean War, sorry, they took the munitions. Basically, they went a bit silent in the 80s, and they stopped doing anything to do with like nuclear war, nuclear weapons or anything like that. Then they came back into it.
Who was that? Sorry.
This is North Korea.
Okay.
Because after World War II, after the US dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and the other place in Japan, which I can't think of off the top of my head,
Nagasaki.
Is it Nagasaki? Okay, yeah. So those after they did that, they basically came to a realization that nuclear weapons are extremely dangerous and they shouldn't be used, and then they basically tried to shut it down across the globe and get I think they signed like a peace treaty across for nuclear weapons. So
It's just like an agreement, isn't it? That, you know,
we're not going to do it.
Don't play with those things. Bad toys. Bad hombres.
Because all the countries that were involved in that like treaty or paranoid that someone was going to let off a bomb and essentially destroy the whole world and blow it. Like eventually the technology would increase, and not only
Well,
just
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll happen one day. One day we'll just blow each other up, and the whole place will just be wiped out. But anyway, on to what would actually happen in a nuclear blast. People,
It's definitely crossed my mind.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary. It's a pretty scary thought, and I think most of the initial things that happen when the explosion goes off are sort of a little bit surreal. I read a couple of like sort of witness sort of transcripts of what they'd actually gone through in Japan. So, which was quite interesting. So one of the main...
Actually, I might have seen some of these. This is the stuff that they're having to do to like prepare almost.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's just things about. I was just researching Hiroshima and everything like that about what actually happened to them, and a few things like witness statements was just like they just saw a very big white flash. Then all of a sudden things got really hot, and there because if you're close enough to the blast radius, you just die. You just because the temperature got up to this was in a smaller bomb. In 1945, but the temperature got up to like 4,000 degrees centigrade. So it's pretty damn warm. It just destroys everything. Then a little bit further out of the blast radius, then you get that it's still very hot. Normally burns all of the clothes off people's bodies, and then a lot of the time they say that you should like remove all of your clothes anyway because they're probably infected with radiation if you haven't already been killed. So it's very scary and very it's not a very good way to die. You'd probably prefer to actually be in the blast radius than being in those outer lying areas, being affected with the radiation. Because radiation poisoning, everything like that is very scary. So, with North Korea on the verge of apparently being able to fire a ICBM around, intercontinental ballistic missile, for those of you who don't know what an ICBM is.
Big ass bomb.
It is a big bomb, basically a big missile that can fly up to about 6,000 something kilometers, and with a nuclear warhead on top of it, either a H-bomb or some form of atomic bomb or anything like that. So, very scary times. And there was a scientist.
I think the bit that gets me, the bit that that sort of you say scary times. I think the bit that sort of actually scares me. I mean, it is worrying, but there's not much you can do if it happens, especially when you're not sort of not necessarily just even at that level, but at that sort of educated and what's the word? Sort of what's the word to be sort of at the level of diplomatic relation in that sort of environment? Qualified.
Okay, yeah.
Qualified, if you will.
Qualified for Australians out there.
But to be sort of qualified to actually be in that position is, everyone thinks we'll do it this way, I'll do it that way. This is the way you should do it, and it's like actually, well, we're playing a very delicate game here, and I think the bit that sort of worries and scares me the most, if that's the right way of putting it, is the idea that there's a country that struggles to potentially feed a lot of their civilians, a lot of their residents. They literally sort of are one sort of, from what I understand anyway, there's one giant city that runs very well and runs fairly clockwork and pretty, shops aren't necessarily shops because a lot of stuff's imported and things, and shops are there for show, for visitors. And then you've got, this country developing a bomb. I mean, who do they have? This is where I find it tough. So who is it that's sort of developing this? Who is it, at least tech-wise, that's sensibly sort of making bombs, that are safe and stable and even just to be stowed, even if they're not going to fire them.
But then all those,
then you add the fact that they're firing over Japan. They're firing things over Japan. Yeah, no nuclear warheads or anything attached, but they're still firing long sticks of fuel and propellant over a country of people, a very well established country of people, a lot of people. Like, it seems that's the bit that gets me. One issue, I'm being someone that understands that sort of realm. it only takes like an off by one to make something like that completely shit its pants and the rocket's going the wrong way.
Oh, 100%. And I think, you know, and when you have scientists and stuff that are being employed by a rogue state that are under pressure and they're being forced to
That's another
probably
thing.
work all the way around
Substantial pressure, yeah, there must be substantial pressure because they are in a political game of who's better, who's bigger, like.
It's pretty worrying. I mean, and you know, and when you're under the pressure, you're working 24/7 to get to something that maybe is not actually
maybe they're
attainable.
not, but it would
Yeah.
seem that way, right? Like
You do something wrong, and then your supreme leader just offs you. Like you like.
from what I've read and seen, yeah.
So it is a scary time.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of things that can happen in the local, like in the actual, like when
Yeah,
when
sorry,
an
back to
explosion
the
would go
local
off.
blast,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then those outer lying
Clothes
areas.
burning off your back. Can you imagine that? I mean, I imagine at that point you're getting burns.
Oh yeah.
Severe burns.
Well, they
If
all
you
the like pictures and artist depictions and stuff of like Japan and Hiroshima is just lots of naked people running around essentially because literally all their clothes got like burnt off. So
And then this is where this is going to be bad to say, and you take a step back and you look and sort of have to understand that the country that fired this is the country that's now the police of the world.
that's right. So
I mean, that's an eye opener, surely. The fact they were able to just say, "Well, let's test it," and it did its job really well.
yeah.
Now that's who we're sort of looking to stop someone else sort of maybe doing that potentially. I'm guessing they learned a lesson in that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you had a country back in those days, Japan.
Driven by competitive sort of.
Well, then there was,
nature
and the
as well.
Japanese were crazy though in World War. The sort of the stories that come out of World War Two, the fighter pilots basically committing suicide.
I've heard about
running
this, the
into
kamikazes.
kamikaze fighters and stuff like that. Like, for going for the rising, doing everything for the rising sun. Like, I mean, it is. Those were crazy times, and I think that you know that was. It's just
They're
in
very
the-
committed people.
I was just saying, us in this day and age, we cannot fathom what was actually happening in those times. We can
We're
read
sat
about
here
it.
making videos and
Yeah,
just chatting about it.
It was a completely different time, and times are different now. We are a lot more populated. So we would like to tell you about what the sort of we did some research into some studies about what would actually happen if North Korea launched a 250 megaton explosive, a nuclear warhead, into certain developed cities in the world.
Come on then.
So first, start off with Hollywood. So we did an episode on the nice frocks and stuff around.
Yes.
If a warhead was to go into Los Angeles, instantaneously it would kill about 191,000 people,
Oh,
just straight off the bat.
just
Then
that's without poisoning anybody. That's without just
no,
burning.
that's
and
just
hurting
like the
people.
initial blast radius.
As far as buildings go, how do they sort of sustain?
Most of them do get destroyed, but just because of
the shockwave
the
that comes out.
Yeah, the shockwave, earthquake. You get a little earthquake. You get all sorts of stuff, and like it just literally just raises and just destroys buildings everywhere. New York is an interesting one. 490,000 people.
Almost over double.
Yeah, over double. Just it's a lot more heavily populated. It's more. It's the
Dense. It's
dense.
very dense concrete.
It
and people.
is, I think, one of the most populated cities in the world, let alone just the US. I think it's the biggest city in the US. San Fran, home of same-sex marriage. 285,000 people.
Shout out to my peeps.
Shout out to episode 1 of season 2. 285,000 would die there. Tokyo. So this is actually
This
a lot.
is where they can hit, and
yeah.
we've pretty much seen that now. Like
338,000 would be killed instantly, but
that's just not.
but there'd be about 800,000 people injured. Like it would just destroy the place because they're so heavily populated,
it's
and
quite
it's such a
small.
small area because they just build up in those Asian cities.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
I think that's. I mean, it's almost like an injustice to sort of mention that that's a possibility because they've had. Not to say that they had that happen in the first place, and I mean, I don't think anyone ever deserved that. Even them, like, you know, it doesn't matter what time of, you know, the war it was or whatever they were doing. That's awful. And the fact that, you know, you look at the North Korea as being so almost insensitive to that whole idea of, you know, they must have a very troubled and upsetting sort of lot of memories from that, because it's not long ago. I mean, you think about it, it wasn't that long ago. There's still a generation of people, you know, not many, but still a generation of people that are alive that were in that were part of it. So
no, exactly, and I think it like I said, it's a pretty scary time. So let's try and curve it up a bit and actually have the beer review.
Oh, okay.
So, what do you think?
Since we've been here, I've discovered the Pacific Ale, the Pac Ale as you call it.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen any yaks, unfortunately. But I'm in the wrong part of the woods for that. That's over the road, over the water,
Over the water,
over the pond,
over the ditch.
over the ditch. Do you call it the ditch? Is it a ditch?
Everyone calls it something different. So.
I like the Pacific Ales. I like the fruity sort of smell and the taste. Obviously, cuts through the summer heat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying this. How about you?
Yeah.
Say aloha to this fresh.
Aloha.
And
We're getting all
fruity.
Hawaiian.
Tropical beast.
I
wouldn't have said New Zealand's tropical.
No, it's not tropical at all. It's closer to where you're originally from than.
Was the yak that you saw fat?
I would say it was yak-like.
How do you define a fat yak, huh?
Hey, I'm not going to judge. So,
Well, what I'm saying is, maybe they could mark it closer. They could be like, oh,
there's lazy yak, and it's like surfing on on the ad as you go into Brisbane.
he ain't lazy. I'm lazy. I won't even go surfing with you.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
all good.
well, tell me what you think.
I think it's full-bodied. I think it's fruity. I think, well, it sounds like I'm like describing a wine.
Yeah.
But no, it's great. I do
Good
like it.
reflex.
I don't think it's as good as Stone and Wood Pac Ale.
That's definitely one of my favourites.
So
That is my favourite.
But it is good, and I would pick it up again. So I'll give it 4 clinks.
4 clinks, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 4. I think 4 clinks. Maybe. Yeah, 4 clinks.
4 clinks. Sweet. On that note,
Well,
we got something else.
we should say for all of you guys that are in that region that are very close and at sort of I said loggerheads, is that the right phrase? I don't know.
Within the blast radius.
Within threats,
Yeah,
being threatened.
Threat area.
And
Yeah.
that includes sort of I know the US are being threatened, but Japanese especially being sort of directly threatened.
South Korea.
South Korea, that must be pretty terrifying. And to everybody else, let's
Keep safe.
keep safe, keep the peace,
Yep.
keep loving, keep drinking. Don't. That's a bad message. Keep enjoying.
Drink responsibly.
Drink responsibly. Keep peaceful. Enjoy life. Let's enjoy life.
And on that note, like, share, subscribe, and thank you very much.
Dig in the ditch, huh?
Yeah.